This was me after the first Thursday without getting a new episode of Severance. Yes, I know it's a painful process to sit and wait until the next season. Now, this was our final shot of Severance Season 2, and at the same time, this actually might be the opening scene of Season 3. Think about how we saw Annie Mark awakening in the elevator in the premiere episode of Season 2 with the whole "she's alive" expression on his face being the last thing that he said at the end of Season 1. But back to this moment. Where exactly are Annie Mark and Helly going? And ending on the shot here where we see nothing but red, does that give us a glimpse into a maybe even darker new Season 3? Welcome back, everybody. In today's breakdown, we're going to have a deep dive into some of the biggest unanswered questions from the finale. We're going to be breaking down what those final moments can lead to, and I'll share some of my more out there theories for Season 3. So with that being said, buckle up because it's going to be a wild ride.
Go for a ride with me.
Okay, so let's start the conversation with the elephant in the room, and no, I'm not talking about one of the functions of the Severance chip, but I'm talking about the most heartbreaking moment of the finale, and that being Gemma screaming and yelling for Mark to come with her and leaving Lumon. Now, I don't know about you all, but for me, my immediate thought was, is Gemma gonna be safe? Now, we've seen the hell that Gemma has went through in the past 2 years and being kidnapped and tested on by Lumon, and then to follow it up and after watching Mark in his any state and him making that heart-wrenching decision to staying with Helly and leaving Gemma at the exit door alone yet again, leaving us to an audience hoping that she can escape Lumon. Now, actor Jen Teller, who we know plays Devin, has actually recently spoken out in an interview about the original plans about what was supposed to happen in the Gemma rescue. Check this out.
There were earlier incarnations of that script that did see the literal follow through of that plan, which was that Devin, I think, had been parked outside in her little jalopy. And the idea was she was the getaway car. Where they would go, I don't know. But I know that was the plan. So I think when that's thwarted and Mark transitions and then escapes, she and Cobell are left there to look at each other. And I imagine there's a lot of desperation. There's a what do we do next? I wonder if they aren't en route to Lumon to try and do something further there. It will be interesting to see if and when we continue this story where that goes.
So after hearing that, I wonder if some iteration of that idea comes to fruition in Season 3, and we actually get to see Gemma managing to gather herself and escaping Lumon, and we get to see Devin and Cobell are outside to help her with exactly that. Now, this being a more darker and possibly more likely scenario in this situation, first and foremost, we know that there's the main level to Lumon's building that Gemma would have to walk or run through, and we've seen how Audi Mark enters the building, and I don't see a scenario where Gemma would be able to walk out without getting stopped or questioned by security. Now, the biggest reason I don't see her making it out without some serious help is the fact that Lumon needs Gemma's chip. It's extremely important for Lumon to get her back because we know that there are 25 other innies in her, minus the Cole Harbor file, that have been tested and proven to work in Lumon's experiments, but clearly needs more refining because we saw that her seeing Audi Mark triggered something inside of her for her to not completely dismantling the baby crib. Now, I would think that seeing Gemma being held hostage again or kidnapped again by Lumon would probably feel a little bit repetitive. So honestly, I would be way more interested in seeing Gemma outside of Lumon making her escape. Also, something that just came to mind, and it's kind of sad honestly, but thinking about if Gemma does make her escape, the fact is that Miss Casey is essentially gone forever and didn't get much of any closure. Now, another thing I would hope to explore more with Gemma in Season 3 is to get a better understanding of what exactly happened the night of her alleged death. I would like to see if any of the existing characters that we know, for example Britt, if he had anything to do with the 2-year cover-up or her being believed to have been dead. Now, there's also the possibility of seeing the roles being in reverse in a way where we get to see Gemma working with Devin and Cobell and others and trying to figure out a way to getting Mark out of Lumon alive. Now, I use the word alive because we know that Mark S is now expendable after completing Cole Harbor now, or is he? More on that a little bit later. So how do you all feel Gemma's escape will be handled in Season 3? Will she have a bigger role in the new season? Will we get a true and longer reunion between her and her husband, Mark? Now, on to someone who's been a key part of this story up until this point and was briefly mentioned but not seen in the finale, and that was Irv, who may or may not have a key part in Season 3.
You mentioned losing Irving. We see Turturro, on the train in the penultimate episode. And if this is the last we see of Irving B or Irving Bailiff, do you feel like you got to explore everything you wanted to with this character?
I do, and I can't speak to whether we will see him again or not, but I think that he is he's somebody who, from what little we did see of him on the outside, I think he's somebody who is very lonely and kind of had written himself off as not somebody who gets to have love in his life. But Irving is going off with the understanding that maybe this part of himself that's capable of love that he thought was gone is not necessarily gone, and there might be more adventures of that kind ahead for him.
Now, at the start of that clip I just played you all, which again came from the creator of the show, Dan Erickson, he said that he felt that he's explored what he wanted to with the character, but then that last bit about Irv and having more adventures with love sounds like we haven't seen the last of the character. Now, does that mean that Irv will serve as the Cobell of season 3, meaning that we're going to spend most of the season with him outside of here? We're going to see him maybe finding love, and in finding that love, that's going to bring him back into the main story and bring him back to Cure. I really hope so, because there are still so many unanswered questions for the character. For example, just in season 2 alone, who is he on the phone with? We also know that his drawings were so key in helping Mark save Gemma, but that brings up the question, how did his Audi know about the export halls? Who's the man in the picture that was in his hidden chest? Why did he have all the severed employees' names on a list? Also, another thing for me selfishly is I want to see our core 4 innies together again, because if you think about it, technically the only scene that they actually had together as the core 4, and they really weren't even like in close proximity, but you think about the final moments of episode 4 on the retreat after Irv revealed that Helena was pretending to be Helly, and we know he was fired after. So we didn't get much time with them all together in season 2, so again, I would hope that we would get a reunion with them in season 3. He's the outsider now. He's on the train to wherever that destination may be, and he seems to have the resources he needs to take down Lumon, if of course that was his intentions to begin with. So in my mind, Irv is being positioned as a character that's going to get the opportunity to expand in the world of Severance. We might get the chance to hearing others' perspective of how they feel about Lumon and Severance, and again, using my Cobell connection, maybe we get to see Irv visiting his old stomping grounds. We get more backstory on the character, which makes me think that Irv, and can't forget about Radar, are being set up to have a completely different and new role for season 3. Now, speaking to one of the biggest reveals this season, and that being Helena pretending to be Helly, and of course getting the peek behind the curtain of Helena's life as Jane Egan's daughter and the next in line to be the CEO of Lumon. Now, it wasn't only apparent that her father seemed to not have much interest in her, but it was also confirmed by the man himself.
I do not love my daughter.
Now, to me, him telling Helly how he doesn't love his own daughter anymore and that she doesn't have Cure in her anymore, but Helly does, this sets up the possibility of Jane Egan wanting Helly to be his full-time daughter possibly, and maybe even being the next CEO of Lumon. This whole time, we've seen how those in higher positions or those in higher management feel about the innies and how they view them as less than or as animals, but regardless of who Helly really is, for the current CEO, Jane Egan, the quote-unquote creator of Severance, and we obviously know that reveal, but for him to tell an innie that he sees Cure in her, to me, opens the door for the innies to be looked at differently from Lumon moving forward. So could we see Helly using this new interest in her as a bargaining tool to protect the innies who rebelled against Lumon in the finale, like a Lorne or a Dylan or the C&M department, but also to protect Mark S., who's responsible for the death of Mr. Drummond and ruining Cold Harbor? So if Helly agrees to be this full-time Helena and replacing her and maybe being the next CEO of Lumon, will Jane Egan be more likely to revolve, and will Helly get to experience the outside world with any Mark under the OTC protocol or the Glasgow Block protocol? By the way, speaking of those other Severance chip functions, I wonder if we actually saw Mark and Helly literally get freeze framed in this exact moment. But back to Helly, I do expect Helly to lean more into the fact that James said what he said to her and see her use her outie status more to get what she wants, and it could lead to maybe some good outcomes or possibly some bad ones as well. Now, I do have a slightly pre-draft script for an any Mark and outie Mark discussion video, but we'll see if that comes to fruition later on. But I do wonder what their relationship will be like between them in season 3. The decision that any Mark made to choosing himself and Helly over Gemma seems like something that's impossible to come back from in the sense of trusting one another again. Also, to harken back to what I was talking about earlier, and that is the idea that Mark isn't essential to Lumon anymore, or is he? This is actually something that was on my mind, and I shared this online a day after the finale. As you all can see, in a way, Mark just did what Cold Harbor was intended for. His outie's connection to Gemma had no effect on his decision to picking Helly R. So with that being said, could Lumon study Mark's chip and use it for a Cold Harbor 2.0 or for another new project to achieve what they were hoping to achieve with Gemma? So with all that being said, could Lumon study Mark's chip and use it for a Cold Harbor 2.0 or for another new project to achieve what they were trying to do with Gemma? There is also the fact that Mark killed a person in the process of attempting to save his wife. All of this leads me to thinking that we'll be seeing Mark S in a completely different position come season 3, and I'm really excited to see what that looks like. Now, bringing it back into the conversation about Helly and Mark and figuring out a way to get to experience more time together as we saw them running in the hallways of Lumon, could we spend the first few episodes of the new season with them staying as their Annies for a long extended period of time? I think about Peteys' map, and in particular this section here that reads, "Some people might live here." Could we see Mark and Helly meeting or sharing a space with Lumon employees that live in the actual Lumon building permanently? Does that include someone like Mr. Milchick or other supervisors that supervise the other departments in Lumon? Now, one of the more fascinating things that I'm excited for is the possibilities of seeing characters interacting for the first time in season 3. I think about the possibility of Helena or Helly meeting Gemma and even Devin. Or maybe getting the revelation that Helena actually met Gemma before, and that makes me think about this look. Did Gemma actually know who Helly/Helena was? Also look forward to seeing Mark meeting James, or we see James meeting someone like Rickon, or the possibility of meeting James Egan's other children if we haven't met some of them already. There's so much more to dive into from this past season, from the understanding of the GOAT reveal, to the question on whether Rickon's gonna write a book for Lumon, to what's gonna happen with Natalie and Milchick and what will their role be in season 3, and there's so much more, but for now, let's come to an end to this breakdown. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I have some other ideas for future Severance breakdowns to discuss while we wait for the return of the show, which, here's another theory for you all. I believe that we'll probably get season 3 by the middle or later of 2027 if I were to take a guess. But either way, if you all want me to continue the conversation about this past season and talk more about my theories involving the characters and what deeper meanings may have, or on a second rewatch what things mean to me now, and all the different things that we can talk about with this most recent season, let me know by liking this video. Let me know in the comments by suggesting what type of Severance videos you all would like me to discuss. So with that being said, let's keep the conversation going. So those are just a few of my thoughts on Severance Season 2 and what I hope to see next. It's safe to say that Season 3 cannot get here quick enough, so let me know in the comments again, what do you all think about the finale? What are some of the lingering thoughts that you all have, and what theories do you have for Season 3? Let me know in the comments below. So just to let you all know, this video can be found in an audio only version on all of the different platforms that podcasts can be found, whether that's on Apple or on Spotify. So don't forget to like and share this video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to my podcast for more Severance content as we get closer to season 3. Don't forget, you all are awesome. Stay safe and remember,
please try to enjoy each fact equally.